So this is Amir. Wow, brave choice, Anna. You sure he's not just marrying you for a passport? Laughter rolled across the table. Silverware paused midair. Heat climbed my neck. I tightened my grip on the water glass until the stem squeaked. We were at Violetta's on Rush, under chandeliers that looked like upside-down bouquets, white tablecloths, tall candles, waiters gliding like they were on tracks. Outside the windows, Chicago winter threw bright flakes at the glass and tourists at the curb. Inside, every eye was on us. "Everyone," I said, steady as I could, "this is Amir." He tipped his head. "Thank you for having me." "I'm really happy to be here," Mom's smile thinned. "Adorable," she said. "Just slow down next time, sweetheart." A few cousins chuckled. A fork clinked. Dad reached for bread he didn't eat. Chloe, my sister, lifted her phone, snapped a photo, and whispered, "Filter'll help." I slid my knee against Amir's under the table. He brushed my hand once. "It's okay," he mouthed, barely a whisper. The waiter poured Barolo. I watched the red climb the glass like a tide and wished it would swallow me. Dad cleared his throat. "So, Amir, what do you do?" "I'm a civil engineer," he said, gentle, "working on a city project in Detroit." Aunt Paula leaned in. "Impressive. You people are so good with numbers." Soft laughter again. My jaw tightened. Amir smiled politely. "It's mostly teams." "I told you," I said, trying for bright. "The pedestrian bridge by the Riverwalk?" "That's," his mom waved a hand. "Very nice, dear. As long as you two can communicate. Marriage is hard enough without barriers." "We communicate fine, Mrs. Moore," Amir said. "Oh, please," Mom said, cool and cheerful. "Call me Nancy." "Mrs. Moore makes me feel old." Chloe took a sip. "You'll learn," she said. "Our family moves fast." "I'll do my best," he said. Mom dabbed her mouth with a napkin that didn't need dabbing. "Just make sure our traditions don't get lost in translation." No one smiled. The air pressed down. I slid my palm over Amir's knuckles. He eased his hand from mine to reach for water, the most polite escape I'd ever seen. The first course arrived, burrata with roasted tomatoes, basil bright as new leaves. Plates landed. Conversations restarted in quick, safe bursts. Mortgage rates, a cousin's internship, a neighbor's new Tesla. I heard none of it. I watched Amir cut a tomato as if it might explode. Uncle Mark leaned forward. "So, where's your family from?" "Birmingham," Amir said. "Michigan." "No, I mean originally." He smiled once. "Here," he said. "Also Lebanon." "Ah," Mark said, satisfied. "The food must be spicy." He laughed at his own joke. No one joined him. Dad raised his glass. "To Anna and Amir," he said. "May your love be strong enough to survive differences." The word dropped like a plate. A beat of silence. A cousin snorted into his wine. Mom laughed as if Dad had made a clever toast. Uncle Vince pushed the knife stand. "Just make sure the wedding doesn't look like a cultural fair." More laughter. I stared at my napkin until the white blurred. Amir smiled at me. I held his eyes for a beat and then stared at the candle instead. Wax trembled at the edge of the cup. Mom patted my wrist. "We just want you to marry someone who understands our culture," she said, loud enough for the far end. "He does, Mom," I said. "I mean really understands," she said, "not just pretends to." The table fell quiet. A waiter stepped back, reading the room. Amir set down his glass, careful. Not a drop spilled. "Nancy," he said, level, respectful. "I love Anna." That's what I understand. Chairs creaked. Aunt Paula blinked. Chloe's mouth opened, then snapped closed. Dad stared at his bread like it might answer for him. "You'll thank us one day for being honest," Mom said. The smile never moved from her face. My throat worked. Maybe honesty isn't always kindness. Her smile thinned. "Kindness," she repeated, like it was a foreign word. The mains arrived, veal saltimbocca, grilled branzino, bowls of lemon risotto giving off steam. The waiter grated Parmesan. No one asked for pepper. No one asked for anything. "Tell us about your parents," Aunt Paula said after 3 tense forkfuls. "Do they approve?" "They want me to be happy," Amir said. "And are they," she circled a hand in the air, "similar to us?" "We're all people, Ms. Paula," he said. "Oh, of course," she said, cheerful and empty. "Of course." Chloe leaned past me. "How will you do holidays?" she asked. "Ours are a lot." "We'll show up," Amir said. "We'll help." "And your—" Chloe paused. "Your side? Do they drink? We do champagne." "I'll pour it," he said. "I won't drink it." Chloe laughed too loud. "Well, that's a first in this family." Mom's smile sharpened. "We want you comfortable," she said to me. "This is your life." Her eyes slid to Amir. "Not a project." The word hung there, ugly and soft. Something inside me flexed like a fist. I reached for the water. My hand shook against the stem. Amir set his napkin on his lap like he was pacing himself. Dad cut his veal into perfect squares he didn't eat. A cousin scrolled under the table. Aunt Paula whispered to the woman beside her and didn't bother hiding it. The dessert menus appeared. No one opened one. I stood. "Thank you all for coming," I said. My voice was steady. I didn't feel steady. "We're getting engaged with or without your jokes." "Anna," Mom said, warning in the name. "No," I said. "We're done for tonight." Chloe rolled her eyes. "She's sensitive," she stage whispered. Amir rose beside me. "We appreciate dinner," he said to Dad. He nodded to the table. "Good night." Chairs scraped. Hugs happened out of habit. People kissed the air near my cheek. No one looked Amir in the face long enough to see him. We stepped into the small storm on the sidewalk. Snow stuck to Amir's hair in quiet dots. Traffic hissed on wet pavement. A bus chuffed past and threw cold on our legs. We walked to the car without talking. I unlocked it with stiff fingers and slid into the driver's seat. The heater coughed and began to warm the windshield in slow stripes. My hands hovered over the wheel, useless. "Did I say something wrong?" he asked, calm. The same calm he uses when a beam is off by a 1/4 inch. "No," I said. "You just existed." He let out a soft sound that might have been a laugh and might have been something else. He reached for my hand. Our fingers touched. Cold met colder. He squeezed once and let go. I watched Mom through the mirror, standing under Violetta's gold awning like a queen in a snow globe. The hostess held the door. Mom didn't go back in. She stared at the street as if the city was to blame. The radio found an old Italian love song and set it under everything like a dare. I turned it down to a hum. Amir watched the glass fog and cleared a circle with his knuckles so we could see the taillights in front of us. "They don't have to like me," he said. "But they should respect you," I said. He turned his head. "Respect doesn't come in my accent." The heater pushed harder. My breath slowed with it. I pulled away from the curb and joined the slow line up a rush, brakes flashing red along the block. Snow stumbled in the light. Our wipers kept time. We passed couples laughing under umbrellas, coats flapping. A man dragged a Christmas tree down the sidewalk like a ritual. A taxi cut in. I didn't swear. Amir didn't flinch. At the light, I waited with my hands at 10 and 2 and my jaw locked. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. I didn't check it. I stared at the green reflection of the traffic signal on the hood and felt my teeth meet. The radio singer promised someone forever in a language my mother didn't speak. I parked a block from my building because the street plow had buried our spot. We walked the last stretch, our shoes pushing through the ridge of snow like a small fight we were ready for. At the building door, I fumbled the keys. Amir caught them midair. "Got you," he said, the ghost of a smile. Upstairs, I hung my coat and set my clutch down. The diamond on my hand winked under the kitchen light like it had its own weather. Amir filled a glass and drank half without stopping. I took the other half and still felt thirsty. He leaned against the counter. "I'm sorry," he said. For what? He shrugged one shoulder. Existing? I laughed once, a sound with no joke in it. We're doing this, I said, with or without their honesty. He nodded. We stood close and didn't touch. In bed, the city pushed sirens around the corners and let them fade in long, tired lines. Snow tapped the window like a patient guest. I lay on my back and listened to Amir breathe until it evened out. My phone lit the room once with a new message and then went dark again. That night, I learned something simple and ugly, under a $1,000 chandelier and a dessert no one ordered. People can call cruelty truth and serve it with a smile. That night, I realized honesty was just cruelty with better lighting. The first time my mother asked for money, I was stirring a pot of tomato soup and the whole kitchen smelled like basil. Amir was at the table with his laptop open, half listening for the oven timer and half reading emails. My phone lit up. Mom. I hit speaker. Hey, Mom. Sweetheart, I hate to ask, but we're short on the mortgage this month. My hand paused over the pot. How short? Just $1,200. Your father's check got delayed again. I looked at Amir. He met my eyes and gave a small nod. I swallowed. I'll send it tonight, Mom. You're a blessing, honey. We're both lucky, I said. When I hung up, Amir closed his laptop. First time? Yeah, I said, trying to make it light. Probably the last. He smiled a little. Okay. I sent the transfer after dinner. We ate soup and grilled cheese at the small table by the window. Snow slid down the glass in slow lines. Amir said nothing. I could feel him choosing silence, so I didn't feel worse.
A month later, I was in the grocery aisle comparing cereal when my phone buzzed again. Honey, need $800. Promise I'll pay you back. I stood between Cheerios and Raisin Bran and stared at the words until the letters blurred. I paid, loaded bags into the trunk, and sent the money before the cart boy got to me. You're lucky Amir's in tech. God really blessed you, Mom texted after. We both work, I typed. Sure, but he's the breadwinner, right? I deleted 3 replies and sent nothing. That night, I printed our bank statement in the den while Amir rinsed plates in the kitchen. That's the second time? He asked from the sink. It's family, I said. It's fine. He turned off the water, wiped his hands, and kissed my forehead. Okay. Over the weekend, Mom called with a laugh in her voice. You saved us again! We couldn't have done it without you, Chloe piped up somewhere near the speaker. Guess your fancy foreign husband's good for something. They both laughed. I forced a small sound that could pass as a laugh if you weren't listening. Amir, drying a bowl, paused. His face went still. He set the bowl down like it might break under his fingers. We ate reheated pasta in a silence that tasted wrong. I said the sauce was better on day 2. He said it was. We both chewed too long. A few weeks later, an email hit my inbox at 7:13 a.m. Medical bill for Aunt Rose, urgent. Mom texted right after. You know I'd never ask if we weren't desperate. I opened the banking app. $600 sat under our names. Payday was 2 days away. I closed my eyes long enough for the screen to time out. Amir walked through, tie loose, coffee in his hand. Another emergency? She's family, I said. So am I, he said quietly. The words landed between us. I clicked transfer and watched the spinning circle do its work. That afternoon, I sat in the school pickup line behind a minivan with a faded soccer sticker. Layla burst out the door in her pink hat and hopped into her booster. Can we get hot chocolate? Maybe at home, I said. My phone buzzed. Thank you, sweetheart. We'll pay you back soon. A second ping came right after. By the way, maybe by... Each time I told Amir, last one, he held my gaze. You said that last time. I nodded, and I sent it, and then I promised myself again. One Tuesday, he opened the fridge and stared. We're out of milk. I laughed, short and mean. Guess I paid for everyone else's groceries. He shut the door and turned to me. I was at the table with bank papers spread like homework. They used to thank me for visiting, I said.
Now they thank me for transferring." He walked around the table and put his hand on my shoulder. "You don't owe them peace for their chaos." "You wouldn't understand," I said, and the words tasted unfair as soon as I said them. "You didn't grow up in guilt." He didn't move his hand. "No," he said, "I grew up learning to stop it." The clock in the hall ticked too loud. I opened the app and scrolled through transfers. Each line had a date, an amount, a little green check. My eyes burned. I blinked hard and glanced at the door like fresh air could change numbers. "It's family," I said, weak. "No, Anna," he said, "it's a transaction." The next week, Mom called while I was folding towels. "Honey, your Aunt Linda's water heater died. Total nightmare. Can you help?" "How much?" I asked, even though I hated myself for it. "Only $700, she said. "You know we'd never ask if we had a choice." "You always have a choice," I said, before I could stop myself. Silence. Then, "Is this your husband talking or you?" "It's me," I said. "It's my money." "That's not how marriage works," she snapped, then softened. "You know what I mean." I sent $500 and then cried in the laundry room with the dryer rumbling in my ear. On a Saturday, we drove to my parents' for lunch. I brought a salad and a cake. As I set them down, Mom called to Chloe from the other room, loud enough for me to hear. "Your sister keeps us afloat." That man turned out useful. I stood in the hallway and watched Amir hang up our coats on the wobble hook Dad never fixed. He heard it too. He met my eyes and looked away first. At the table, Dad bowed his head. "Lord, thank you for this food and for our generous children." Chloe smirked. Winter turned to slush. The driveway froze and thawed and froze again. Layla's boots lined up by the door with little salt rings around the soles. Bills came, and we paid them. My mother joked about our tech money at dinner with Chloe. My father borrowed my car for an afternoon and returned it with an empty tank. I sent $50 to my cousin for textbooks and told myself that was different. One evening I was at the sink peeling potatoes when Chloe called. "Quick question," she said. "Can you spot me 200 until Friday?" "What for?" "Window guy," she said. "It's freezing in here." "I can't," I said. "What do you mean can't?" She sounded offended, like I'd broken a rule. "I mean, I won't." A beat. "Wow," she said. "Money changed you." "Maybe it changed you," I said, and hung up before she could throw the next stone. 10 minutes later, Mom called. "What happened with your sister?" I said no. "You can't punish us because your husband has boundaries," she said, sharp now. "We made you who you are." I braced a hand on the counter. "I made me who I am." "You're turning your back on your own people." "Mom," I said, "my own people are in my house." She huffed like I'd spoken a foreign language. "Fine," she said, sugar dripping back into her voice. "Just the mortgage this month, then. We're short again." I looked at the clock. Layla was drawing at the table, tongue between her teeth in concentration. Amir was fixing the loose chair leg for the 3rd time. "I can't," I said. "Not this month." "Your father will be humiliated," she snapped. "He's been fine being comfortable," I said. "He can be humble for a week." She hung up without a goodbye. My hands shook. I finished peeling potatoes I no longer wanted. That night, after Layla fell asleep, Amir and I sat at the table with the laptop between us. Cold light on our faces, numbers we couldn't charm into new shapes. He didn't push, I didn't defend. We just looked. "You don't have to pick them over us," he said. "I'm trying to keep everyone together," I said. "They're asking you to come apart," he said. I closed the laptop and stared at my reflection in the black screen. My face looked older there, tired, stubborn, scared. The next morning my phone chimed before my alarm. "Just till payday," a heart emoji. I turned it over and let the buzz pass. By the end of that week, I could list my transfers in order without checking. 1,200, 800, 500, 700, 300, 250, 100. Each one had a reason. None of them felt like love. Saturday night, I stood in front of the fridge and took stock. 1 egg, half a lemon, a jar with 2 pickles left, ketchup, a quiet light bulb. Amir opened the door beside me and peered in. "We're out of milk," he said. I laughed once, a flat sound. Guess I paid for everyone else's groceries. He shut the door gently and leaned on the counter. I sank into a chair. "They used to thank me for visiting," I said. "Now they thank me for transferring." "You don't owe them peace for their chaos," he said. "You didn't grow up in guilt," I said, softer than before. He nodded. "No, I grew up learning to stop it." We held each other's eyes until mine filled. I wiped them with the heel of my hand and opened the banking app. The list of transfers ran down the screen like a set of train tracks going in one direction. Dates, amounts, notes, green checks, all of them. I locked the phone and laid it face down. I looked around our little house. Scuffed floor, thrifted couch, wobbly table, Layla's crayons jammed into a chipped mug. It wasn't much, but it was ours. The room felt quiet in a way I hadn't noticed in months. Outside, snow started again, soft and soundless. Amir turned off the lamp and the room slid into a warm half-dark. He reached for my hand. I squeezed back and said it out loud, steady this time. I was funding their comfort and starving my peace. Thanksgiving at my mother's house looked perfect from the doorway. Candles lined up on the mantel, a turkey browning in the oven, silverware catching the last of the light. I walked in with a bowl of mashed potatoes and a smile that felt stapled on. Amir slipped out of his coat and went straight to my dad. "Bears or lions this week?" he asked, easy and warm. Dad chuckled. "Bears, always." They started in on quarterbacks and injuries. I set the bowl on the table, smoothed the cloth, and pretended my stomach wasn't tight. Mom passed behind Amir with a tray of glasses and said to no one in particular, "He's really trying, isn't he?" Chloe, already on her second glass of Merlot, didn't miss a beat. "It's cute," she said, "like watching someone do a spelling bee in another language." A couple of cousins snickered. I kept my eyes on the potatoes and stirred even though they were done. Amir kept talking with my dad, not hearing or pretending not to. I touched his elbow when he walked by. He gave me a quick, quiet smile, a little gesture that said he was okay. Dinner was loud and glossy. Mom floated around topping off wine. "We should get pictures after," she called. "Family tradition." Everyone cheered. Amir leaned toward me. "I'd like that," he said. Something inside me pulled tight. I nodded and reached for the gravy boat. We ate. People praised the stuffing. Dad carved. Layla sat on a booster and told a long story about a leaf she found at school, and Amir listened like it was breaking news. The room hummed with the good noise of plates and stories. Every now and then I caught Mom watching Amir the way you check a smoke alarm. Present, tolerated, maybe one day replaced. When the dishes were cleared, Mom clapped. "Okay, photos!" The family photographer, really my uncle with a new camera, herded us into the living room. The tree wasn't up yet, but the mantel was ringed with gold candles. He lifted the camera. "Let's get everyone together." One big family shot. Amir slid beside me and rested a hand at my back. Chloe's eyes flicked to the lens, then to us. "Maybe stand a little to the side," she said, "for symmetry." A few people laughed like she was being helpful. Amir shifted half a step. I followed his move without thinking, body learning the choreography that made other people comfortable. "Perfect," Mom said. "Everyone smile." The flash popped. I heard Chloe whisper near Mom's ear, soft but not soft enough. "At least now the photo looks balanced." They shared a small laugh. My jaw clicked shut. I kept the smile because the camera was still up. "Let's do kids only," my uncle called. Layla grabbed Amir's hand. "Come too, Daddy." Mom's voice came quick and cheerful. "Just the cousins, sweetie." Layla's fingers loosened. Amir crouched to her height. "I'll cheer for you," he said, and the way he said it made me want to take the camera and throw it out the window. They set us up again, grandparents in chairs, siblings behind, kids in front. Amir tapped my shoulder. "Want me in or out?" "In," I said, barely moving my lips. "Okay," he said, and slipped back to my side. My uncle raised the camera again. "One more, chin up, eyes here." Layla looked up from the front row, hand to her forehead to block the glare. "Why can't Daddy be in the middle?" she asked, loud enough for the whole room. Mom bent at the waist and smiled down at her. "Because he's tall, honey." Laughter rippled through the cousins. My uncle snapped the photo like he didn't hear anything. Amir's hand left my back. I felt the absence like a cold spot. After the pictures, the house shifted into coffee and pie mode. People drifted into smaller conversations. Amir carried mugs from the kitchen. I collected abandoned napkins. Mom scrolled through the previews on the camera and nodded, pleased. "Lovely," she said. "We'll have so many to share." On our drive home, Layla fell asleep in her car seat with a sugar ring on her mouth. Amir watched the road. "That went better than last time," he said, trying for light. "Sure," I said. "We got through it," he added. "We did," I said, and stared at the dark city moving by my window. A week later, a notification lit my phone while I was in line at the pharmacy. Nancy Moore posted a new photo. I tapped without thinking. There it was. Everyone in the living room, the gold candles, the polished smiles. And a gap. Amir was gone. The spot where he had stood next to me was empty, like a chair pulled out from under someone. The caption said, "Family Forever." My mouth went dry. I screenshotted it. At home, I held the phone out to Amir at the sink. He wiped his hands, took it, and looked for a long moment. "At least I know where I stand," he said, and handed the phone back. "I'll talk to her," I said, and my voice already sounded tired. Mom picked up on the second ring. "Sweetheart!" "Why did you crop him out?" I asked. "Who?" she said, too fast. "Amir," I said, "my husband." There was a pause. "People might get confused about who's who," she said then, like she had prepared it. "Confused about what?" I asked. "It's just cleaner that way," she said. "You know how people online can be." "He's my husband." "Yes," she said, cheerful again, "but it's a family photo." The word family stretched longer than it needed to. It landed with weight. I held the phone to my ear and stared at the wall. "He is family." Mom's voice cooled. "Don't be dramatic, Anna." "You know what I meant," I ended the call. My thumb shook. I set the phone on the table face down and sat. Amir came over and put a hand on my shoulder. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until it left me all at once. "You don't have to explain me to them," he said. "But they should see you," I said. "They don't want to," he said. "They want to see what fits." That evening, I found the memory card from Thanksgiving in my purse, the original prints Mom had given me in a little envelope. I laid the full photo on the table. Amir with his hand at my back, Layla kneeling by his knee, Dad squinting, Chloe head tilted, Mom perfect. The second print, the one she'd posted, sat beside it. The empty space where Amir had been was obvious now, a quiet cut my eyes couldn't stop going to. I turned on the TV for noise. Sports highlights flickered. I didn't absorb a thing. Layla ran in. I typed 3 different answers and didn't send any of them. Amir sat beside me and tucked a leg under himself like he was camping out. "We can stop going," he said gently. I shook my head. "It's Thanksgiving." He nodded, and we were there. The next day at lunch, a cousin commented on the post, "Beautiful family." Chloe added a heart. Mom responded with prayer hands. I put my phone face down again and told myself to focus on work. That night, I wiped the kitchen counters like a ritual. Amir washed the last plate and rested it on the rack. We moved around each other quietly. The house felt small and safe and like it might not be enough. "Do you want me to say something to her?" he asked. "No," I said. "It'll just make it worse." He dried his hands and leaned his hips on the counter. "I don't mind being disliked," he said, "but I don't like being erased." I nodded, because there was nothing else to say that didn't burn. Layla dragged her blanket into the kitchen. "Can we hang our picture?" she asked, pointing at the framed shot with all of us. "Yes," I said, and found a nail in the junk drawer. Amir held the frame while I hammered. It hung slightly crooked. We stepped back. Layla beamed like we'd put up a star. "Perfect," she said. We settled on the couch with popcorn and a cartoon that laughed at its own jokes. Layla's head found my lap. Amir's shoulder found mine. The room warmed up around us. When the credits rolled, I turned off the TV and the house went soft. The framed photo caught a slice of lamplight. I could see my face in the glass beside the picture, my reflection lining up with the space where he'd been cut away in the other version. My throat tightened, not with anger, but with the dull ache of understanding something too clearly. I clicked the lamp off and the room fell to quiet. Layla snored once and adjusted her blanket. Amir gathered the empty bowl and took it to the sink. I stayed where I was and let the quiet say what the holiday had only hinted. My family didn't have to shout to make their point. A crop tool did the work. A caption did the rest. I stood and pressed my fingers to the cool frame. That was the first time silence felt louder than hate, I said, barely above a whisper to no one.
Nice. When do we leave? We're not. I kept my eyes on the basket of clothes. He leaned his shoulder on the doorframe. Got it. Another photo dropped in. My parents, Chloe, her kids, her husband, all grinning with lobster bibs. Best family ever, heart. Amir drifted over and looked from the side. They didn't tell you? Guess not. I smiled because that's what I do when I'm embarrassed. He half laughed, gentle and tired. They're making it easy for us to stay home. It's fine, I said. I picked up a pair of socks and missed the drawer. A new text slid in from my mother. You two wouldn't enjoy it anyway. Too much pork and beer. The room went quiet. Amir glanced at the screen, then at me. He didn't roll his eyes. He didn't flare up. He just pressed his lips together like he didn't want me to spend another ounce of energy translating what that meant. You're still doing it, he said softly, translating for them. I locked the phone, shut off notifications for the group, and went back to folding. My fingers trembled enough that the fabric wouldn't lie flat. That night, the TV murmured from the living room while I opened my laptop at the table. I scrolled through 4 years of transfers, $1,200, $800, $2,250, $1,100. A long hallway of numbers, each one with a message attached in my head. You're a blessing. You saved us again. You're the good one. At the bottom, the total stared back. $54,000. 54,000, I said out loud, because saying it made it real. And not even an invitation. Amir stood behind me. He didn't hover. He stood like a wall without pressing. You don't have to buy your way in, Anna. I wasn't, I said too quickly. I thought I was helping. They never asked for help, he said. They asked for ownership. I looked up at him. Then why does it still hurt this much? He put his hand on my shoulder, squeezed once, and let go. I opened the banking app and slid the toggle off. Auto transfer disabled. It was a tiny sound, a tiny motion. It felt bigger than it looked. Morning brought sunlight and a new private text from my mother. Hope there's no hard feelings, sweetheart. You know how chaotic things get. I typed, we're good, then erased it. I typed, we felt left out, then erased that too. I put the phone face down. Amir set a coffee next to my elbow. Want to drive to the lake today? Yeah, I said. Just us. Just us sounds good. Layla barreled into the kitchen with a bucket and a plastic shovel. Beach day? Our own beach day, I said, tying her ponytail twice so it wouldn't fall. We packed the trunk with towels, a cooler, sunscreen. No one asked where we were going. No one needed to know. On the drive, Layla sang the chorus to a song she only half knew, and Amir hummed along. The air was warm enough to open the windows. We didn't talk about my phone. At the city lake, the sand was pale and hot under our feet. Layla ran ahead and knelt at the waterline, searching the shallows with serious eyes. Amir set up a little shade tent and laughed when it folded on him once. I poured juice and watched the wind pucker the surface of the water. A few feet away, a dad taught his daughter how to float. 3 teenagers took turns racing to a buoy and back. No one looked at us twice. Layla held up a piece of shell with a smooth hole through the middle. Necklace, she declared, pressing it into my palm. It's perfect, I said. We'll make one when we get home. Amir snapped a photo. Smile, Layla. She grinned so hard her eyes disappeared. He looked at the picture and turned the phone for me to see. It was simple. Sun, water, our kid with her missing front tooth. No group chat, no captions. No one cropped out.
This feels like family, I said. That's because it is, he said. We ate sandwiches on still warm bread and split a bag of cherries that stained our fingers. Layla built a lopsided castle and gave it a moat. When a wave erased the moat, she laughed and built another. The day moved like that, small, ordinary, hours. Back home, the afternoon slid into evening. I rinsed sand from the cooler in the sink. Layla fell asleep curled on the couch with her bucket as a pillow. The house smelled like sunscreen and cherries. Amir checked the back door and turned off the porch light. My phone, face down on the counter, buzzed once. I flipped it over. The group thread sat where I left it, quiet as a closed store. No miss you, no next time. Just another beach photo. My parents in sunset light. Chloe's kids holding sparklers. Everyone captioned with family forever, like the ocean had written it. A private text blinked in from my mother. You know we love you. Don't be dramatic. I stared at it until it faded to the lock screen. Amir leaned against the counter beside me. How's the family? Still on the beach, I said. He nodded. We need milk. I laughed, a small, ordinary sound that didn't cost me anything. I paid for everyone else's groceries this month. We can afford milk, he smiled. I'll run out after Layla's in bed. I opened the banking app again. The transfers list was a neat column now, ending clean. No new requests, no recurring labels, just the record of what I'd done and the record of what I'd stopped. Let's see who calls when the money stops, I said, not to pick a fight, not to make a point, just to mark the line I'd drawn. Amir slid his arm around my waist and rested his chin on my shoulder. We stood like that while the dishwasher hummed and the ceiling fan turned. The house was small and simple. It was also full.
When Layla stirred on the couch, I tucked a blanket over her and turned down the lamp. Amir set the milk list by the door. I locked my phone and put it in the drawer beside the stove, the drawer with rubber bands and extra batteries and birthday candles, a place for useful things we don't need every day. Before bed, I checked once more. The group thread was still quiet. The last photo sparkled with fireworks and comments. No one had noticed that my messages were gone. No one asked where we were. I brushed my teeth and met Amir in the hallway. He kissed my forehead and held the kiss there a second longer than usual. I didn't move away. We turned out the lights. I stood at the window and looked at the little patch of sky above the neighbors' roofs. The room dimmed to the shape of our furniture. In the dark, the day arranged itself into a single, plain truth I could say out loud without shaking. I didn't realize love had a price tag, I said, steady, quiet, done, until I stopped paying. Why did you cut us off? The question landed before I could say hello. The kitchen was quiet, the sink half full, Amir at the counter with a towel in his hands. I put the phone on speaker and steadied the glass in front of me. Cut you off? I asked. Don't play dumb, Anna, my mother said. The transfers stopped. I breathed in through my nose. Because you only call when you need something. Water dripped from a plate to the mat. Amir glanced over, waiting. The heater kicked on and rattled the vent. We made you who you are, Mom snapped. You're turning your back on your own people. My own people? My fingers tightened around the rim. You mean Amir and my daughter? Don't twist my words. You think marrying outside makes you special? Another voice slid in, faint and sharp. Chloe. You've always wanted to prove you're better. Guess now you think you are. Better? I let out a short, dry laugh. I just stopped begging to be enough. Ungrateful girl, Mom shot back. We raised you right, white, and proper. Amir put the towel down. His shoulders squared. I kept my eyes on the dark window over the sink. You raised me afraid to be myself, I said, low but clear. Oh my God, Chloe said louder. Mom, hang up. She's brainwashed, Mom pushed on. You think we don't see what he's doing. Pulling you away from us? Amir shifted closer. Anna, he said softly, hang up. My mother heard him. See? He's always there, always listening, controlling. You made sure he'd never feel welcome, I said.
We welcomed him, she insisted. We smiled, we tried, but he's not— Not what? My voice cracked, then held. Not white enough? Silence poured across the line. You're being ridiculous, Mom said finally. No, I answered. I'm being honest. A car passed outside. The wind pressed against the window, then let go. In Layla's room down the hall, a floorboard creaked.
We did everything for you, Mom said, tired and sharp at once. We gave you a good life. You gave me shame, I said. You taught me to hide anything that didn't look like you. She's losing it, Chloe muttered. You can't erase where you come from, Mom said. I'm not erasing it. I'm healing from it. You're choosing him over us. I'm choosing peace over guilt. You're choosing wrong. No, Mom. My throat burned, but the words came clean. You're choosing hate and calling it honesty. Amir stepped behind me and set a steady hand between my shoulder blades. I didn't lean back, but I didn't pull away. Don't call again, I said into the phone. Not until you can respect my family. I ended the call. The click sounded louder than it should have in the small room. I set the phone down. My palm left a damp circle on the table. Amir stayed where he was, his hand firm at my back. You okay? He asked. I nodded, then shook my head and swallowed hard. That was my mom. He turned me toward him. No, he said, gentle. That was the end of her control. A soft whimper carried from down the hall. Mommy? Layla called. I wiped my face with the heel of my hand and walked to her room. She sat up in bed with a stuffed bear pressed to her chest. I sat beside her and smoothed the hair from her forehead. It's okay, baby, I said, keeping my voice steady. Go back to sleep. Bad dream? Amir asked from the doorway, leaning a shoulder to the frame. Layla nodded. Loud voices. All done now, I said. Quiet time. She lay down. I tucked the blanket under her chin, kissed her temple, and sat there until her small breaths slowed again. I could feel Amir's eyes on us, warm and still. Back in the kitchen, the phone lit up with a new message. I didn't look. I filled a glass from the faucet and drank until the water tasted like metal. Amir picked up the towel again, then set it aside and pulled out a chair. Sit, he said. I sat. My hands were shaking. I put them flat on the table and watched the tremor settle. She said they made me who I am, I said. He held my gaze. He didn't argue. He didn't flinch. The phone buzzed again, then again. I shook my head. Not yet. The voicemail arrived as a text preview. Call me back when you calm down. I flipped the phone over again. Amir took a sip, winced, and set his mug down. Your hands aren't shaking anymore, he said. I looked. He was right. Layla coughed in her sleep, a tiny sound with a big echo in the quiet. We both leaned toward the hallway on instinct, then relaxed when all stayed still. My phone vibrated on the table, then stopped. A second later, Chloe's name flashed. You're sick. He's poisoned you. It faded. Another. We won't forget this. Then, you'll regret pushing us away. I slid the phone to Amir. He glanced at the screen and looked back at me. Do you want me to answer? He asked. No. I breathed out. I don't want to explain. He nodded. You don't have to. We sat with that for a while. The clock over the stove clicked forward a minute. The refrigerator hummed and clicked off. In the distance, another train moved through the city. The phone started again, Mom this time. I watched it ring until it stopped. A text followed. Answer your mother. Another. You owe us a conversation. Another. You owe us. Amir's jaw worked. He didn't speak. I picked up the phone and typed. I don't owe you anything but the truth. Respect my family or leave us alone. I hit send. The dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, we are your family. I typed, so are they. 3 dots, nothing more. Amir poured more hot water into my mug. I hadn't noticed it was empty. He sat back down. She'll tell the neighbors I'm unstable, I said. She'll tell people you control me. She's already telling them, he said quietly.
I cracked a brief smile. You heard that tone too? He smiled back, just a little. It was hard to miss. The phone lay between us, quiet now. My shoulders dropped. The tight band around my chest loosened a notch. You stood up, he said. I did. How does it feel? I looked at my hands around the mug. Then I set it down and met his eyes. Real, I said. Scary, but real. He reached across the table. I took his hand. His palm was warm and rough. We sat like that, steady and simple. In the hallway, Layla turned over. The house settled deeper into its bones. The phone lit one last time. When you calm down, you'll realize you're nothing without family. I stared at the sentence. I felt nothing move inside me. I deleted the message and blocked the thread. I stood, carried my mug to the sink and rinsed it. Amir stood too, moved the chairs back in, wiped the counter. The small chores of ending a day. Do you want to watch something? He asked. Not tonight. Okay.
We turned off the lights as we went, hallway, living room, kitchen, until only the nightlight near Layla's door stayed on, a soft circle on the floorboards. In our room, I changed into a t-shirt and sat on the edge of the bed. Amir switched off the lamp and pulled the blanket up. I lay back and listened. No phone, no voices. Just the furnace catching again and the wind outside. Amir's hand found my shoulder in the dark. Sleep, he said. I nodded, though I knew sleep would take a while. I watched the thin strip of streetlight on the ceiling and breathed until my chest rose without hitching. That was my mom, I whispered into the room, the words more habit than message. Amir squeezed my shoulder. That was you, he said. I let the quiet answer for me. Layla's nightlight made a soft glow in the hallway. The house held us the way a house is supposed to. Firm, plain, without questions. I closed my eyes and said it out loud so I could hear my own voice. That night, I didn't lose a mother. I lost my fear. I was peeling an apple when the doorbell went off like a fire alarm. Amir glanced through the front window. Your mom's here, he said, drying his hands on a towel. And Chloe. Mike, too. I set the knife down and wiped my palms on my jeans. The bell rang again, sharper this time. I opened the door. They stood under the gray Detroit sky, hoods damp, shoes muddy. My mother didn't bother with hello. We need help, she said. Your father lost his job. I kept one hand on the doorframe. I'm sorry, but I can't. Her eyes flicked to my hand on the wood, then back to my face. Can't or won't? Both. Chloe let out a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Wow, new boundaries, huh? Money made you arrogant, my mother said, stepping half a foot closer. No, I said, steadying my voice. Your pride did. Mike shifted, water dripping from his jacket onto the mat. Chloe folded her arms. You used to fit in, she said. Now you act like we discussed you. You disgusted yourselves the day you made my daughter feel less, I said. Chloe's mouth curled. There she goes with the speeches. My mother lifted a hand to cut me off. Don't start that again. Then start acting like one, I said. The rain hissed on the porch light. The smell of wet pavement pushed into our hallway. Amir moved behind me, quiet, present. My mother's voice dropped lower. You think you're too good for us now? Amir stepped closer, not touching me, but close enough that I felt calmer. She turned her head and gave him a quick up and down, a cataloging look. He doesn't belong in this house, she said. I turned, and the words came out before I could swallow them. This is his house. You're standing on our porch. Chloe shook her head. Listen to yourself. I am, I said. For once, I actually am. My mother's chest rose.
We're just asking for help.
And I'm saying no. We're your blood, and she's my heart. Small footsteps pattered behind me. Layla appeared in the hallway, hugging her stuffed bear by the ear. "Grandma?" My mother looked down at her, eyes hard. "Then maybe she doesn't belong in this family." Everything went quiet. The rain, the cars, even the clock in the living room. I couldn't hear any of it. Layla's chin trembled. She took a step back. Amir moved in front of me, not aggressive, just there. "You need to leave," he said, voice even. My mother snapped. "You don't tell me what to do in my daughter's home." "Correction," I said, opening the door wider to the cold air. "My home. My family. My choice." Chloe touched my mother's elbow. "Let's go." My mother kept her eyes on me. They were red-rimmed, but the look was steel. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said, "but not tonight." Mike shifted again, rubbed his jaw, and muttered something I didn't catch. Chloe tugged at my mother's sleeve. "Come on. This is pointless." "Good luck," Chloe said to me as she turned. "When they're done with you, we won't be here to save you." I didn't answer. I held the door and watched them take the steps down to the driveway. The SUV door slammed. The engine coughed to life. Tires rolled over wet concrete. The taillights disappeared into the street. I closed the door. Amir slid the deadbolt into place and stood still, hand on the lock, breathing slow. I looked down. Layla was crying in quiet hiccups, bear crushed against her chest. I knelt. "Hey," I whispered, pulling her into my arms. "You'll never hear that sentence again." She nodded into my shoulder, warm tears soaking my shirt. Amir crouched beside us and wrapped an arm around both of us. The three of us stayed like that on the entry rug, shoes damp, rain tapping the window, the house finally ours again. "Do you want water?" Amir asked Layla when the hiccups eased. She shook her head and wiped her face on my sleeve. "Can we have apple slices instead?" I smiled. "Yes. I left one half peeled." We walked back to the kitchen. The knife waited on. Amir rinsed the cutting board and set it against the backsplash. His shoulders lowered. He hadn't raised his voice once. He didn't need to. "Thank you," I said to him, barely more than a breath. He nodded. "I'm here." The rain got heavier. The porch light made a small gold circle on the wet step outside. We could see the footprints my family had left, already blurring. Layla slid from the stool and wrapped her arms around my waist again. "Can we watch a movie?" she asked, small again. "Pajamas first," I said, "then the movie." She ran down the hall, socked feet whispering on the wood floor. I set the knife in the dishwasher and closed it slowly. My hands shook a little. Amir gave me a dish towel and I pressed it into my palms. "Do you want to sit?" he asked. "I want to lock the back door," I said. We walked to the mudroom. I flipped the deadbolt and checked it twice. I turned off the porch light and watched the backyard go dark. I felt my breathing even out. When we came back, Layla had changed into the pajamas with the little stars. She was stacking blankets on the couch like a nest. "Can we make cocoa?" she called. "Yes," I said. My voice came out stronger than I expected. "Cocoa it is." Amir set a pot on the stove. Milk warmed, steam rose. Layla chose 3 mugs and lined them up. She sprinkled tiny marshmallows into each one, counting under her breath. We carried the mugs to the couch and sank down under the pile of blankets. Layla pressed against me, her feet tucked under my leg. Amir draped his arm along the back of the couch, his hand finding my shoulder. He didn't squeeze. He didn't need to. We watched a cartoon she loved. The bright colors moved across the screen, easy and harmless. Every so often, Layla glanced up at me to make sure I was still there, and I met her eyes, steady. Halfway through, she whispered, "Mom?" "Yeah, baby." "Do families have to be mean?" "No," I said. "They don't." She nodded and sipped her cocoa. Good. When the movie ended, I carried her to bed. She was almost asleep by the time I pulled the blanket up to her chin. "Bear,"
she mumbled, and I tucked the stuffed animal under her arm. I stood in the doorway for a moment and watched her breathe. Then I turned out the light and pulled the door to, leaving it open a crack the way she liked. Back in the hallway, Amir leaned against the wall, hands in his pockets. The house hummed softly, the refrigerator, the furnace, the rain. He looked at me like I'd done something brave. I didn't feel brave. I felt clean, like air after a storm. "I meant it," I said quietly. "She'll never hear that sentence again." "You already kept that promise," he said. "You stood in the door." That mattered. I let the words land. We walked back to the kitchen together and wiped up the thin trail of water the three of them had tracked in. Amir hung the dish towel on the oven handle, squared it with the edge. I straightened the fruit bowl. Ordinary things, restored. When I finally checked my phone, there were no new messages, no apology, no threats, just the silent log of a call that never happened. I set the phone face down. "Tea?" Amir asked. "Please." We stood by the sink drinking mugs of mint tea, listening to the rain calm down to a whisper. The porch light caught the last of the drips and then went still. I walked to the front door and pressed my palm to the cool wood. On the other side, the steps shone clean under the streetlight. The night had washed away the outlines of where they'd stood. I didn't narrate it to myself. I didn't try to name it. I just turned the bolt one more time and let the quiet settle. In the living room, the couch still held the shape of our three bodies. A small smear of cocoa dotted the armrest where Layla had missed her mouth. I wiped it with the edge of a blanket and laughed once, a short sound that surprised me. Amir looked up. "What?" "Nothing," I said. "Everything." He smiled. "Okay." We turned off the lamps and went down the hall. Before I closed our bedroom door, I called softly to the dark across from us. "Good night, baby." A sleepy "night" floated back. I slid under the covers. The window cracked just enough to hear the last drops fall. Amir's hand found mine in the space between us. I squeezed back. No speeches, no plans. Just the weight of his palm and the promise I'd already made good on. I held her close and swore she'd never hear that sentence again. And tonight, in this house, she didn't. I push the cart past the apples and head for the milk. 2 women from church spot me by the dairy case. They start toward me, then split in a neat curve like I'm a puddle on the floor. I reach for the carton, check the date, drop it in the cart. No hello, no eye contact, just the squeak of their wheels cutting away. At the register, the cashier keeps her smile pinned on like a name tag. "How's your mom? Heard she's been going through a lot." "We all are," I say, sliding my card. Her smile shrinks. She prints the receipt like that explains anything. I pull into the driveway. Inside, Amir's at the table with his laptop open, earbuds out. He looks up. "People acting strange again?" I lift the grocery bag. "We've got eggs." He nods. No tugging, no lecture, just a soft, "okay," like he knows exactly how much that small deflection cost me. The first message lands while I'm unloading the milk. Unknown number. Mixed families never last. I hold the phone a beat, then block. A second buzz. "Heard you're having problems at home. Your mom's worried." Delete. The kitchen hums with the fridge motor. I set the carton on the shelf like it. On Thursday, I wave at Mrs. Carter walking her dog. She raises her hand, looks past me, crosses to the other side of the street. The dog glances back with more warmth than she does. "It's getting quieter," Amir says that night, carrying Layla to bed. He tucks her blanket, smooth and neat, the way she likes it. "Quieter doesn't always mean peaceful," I tell him. We sit on the couch with the TV on low. News headlines scroll and don't stick. Layla plays tea party on the rug, setting plastic cups in a straight line, then lining them up again. "I think they've erased us without saying a word," I say. "Then we get to rewrite," he answers. I call out to Layla, "Dinner's ready."
She claps her hands, the plastic spoons clatter, and for 10 minutes the whole world is spaghetti and garlic bread, and her story about a girl in class who hid a sticker in her shoe. Amir laughs. I laugh. For 10 minutes, the air tastes normal. The messages keep coming, like they're on a schedule. Heard you moved away from church. Block. People are worried you're isolating yourself. Delete. God corrects those he loves. I put my phone face down and wipe the counter until it creaks. On Saturday, I open the front door to faces I picked on purpose. Marisol stands on the step holding a foil pan, wind pushing her hair into her eyes. It's enchiladas if I didn't ruin them, she says, breathless, smiling like the sun. Behind her, Evelyn lifts a tote of groceries. I brought greens and a terrible joke. Tanya follows with a bag of spices and the kind of hug that lands in your shoulders. We move like we've practiced. Amir pulls the big pot from the bottom cabinet and hands it to Tanya. I rinse cilantro. Marisol shows Layla how to warm tortillas without burning her fingers. Evelyn tells the terrible joke, and it is terrible, which makes it perfect. The house fills with the kind of noise that makes sense. Knife on board, simmering sauce, half-finished stories shared over a stove. You've got good energy in this house, Marisol says, tasting sauce with the back of a spoon. It's survival energy, I say, and I'm not sorry. Evelyn pours juice into mismatched cups. To survival, she says, raising hers.
Layla sits on her knees to be taller. Can I have more green stuff? She asks, pointing at Tanya's bowl. Collards, Tanya says, grinning. That's a grown-up ask. Then I'm a grown-up, Layla declares, mouth full and proud. I catch Amir watching. He doesn't say anything. His shoulders relax the way they do after a storm passes. He tops off drinks, clears plates, returns with a dish towel over his shoulder and a little rhythm in his step. No need to explain himself, no one asking him to. After dinner, Marisol and Layla make a conveyor line for dish drying. Evelyn hums a song I don't recognize, and it still feels familiar. Tanya opens the back door to let steam out, and the cold air rolls in, busy and honest. Anna, Marisol says quietly while Layla stacks bowls. You look lighter. I cooked with friends, I answer. That'll do it. Evelyn taps her cup against mine. To the family that shows up. We clink. It's not champagne, but it might as well be. The night slides to goodbye. Shoes squeak, hugs linger, the leftover containers multiply. You're taking the enchiladas, I tell Marisol, pressing them into her arms. Non-negotiable. She laughs. You're going to text me for the recipe in 2 days. I'm going to text you tomorrow, I correct, and we both know I will. At the door, Tanya squeezes my shoulder. You've got a good house, she says. Not the walls. You know what I mean. I do, I say, and I feel it under my skin. Evelyn pauses on the step. If anyone gives you trouble, tell me where to send a strongly worded email. She winks, then softens. But really, you don't owe anyone access to your peace. I know, I say. For once, I hear myself believe it. They leave in a string of taillights. The porch light throws a soft circle on the wet walkway. I close the door. The quiet is warm this time. Amir comes in from the kitchen, drying his hands. You okay? Yeah, I say. It felt different. Good different. Layla barrels in and wraps herself around my leg. Everyone here looks happy, she says, voice full of certainty the way only kids can be. I crouch and push her hair behind her ear. That's because we made a new kind of family. She nods like she built it herself. Maybe she did. Maybe we all did. We gather the last of the dishes. I flick off the dining room lamp. The house settles. I can still hear laughter hiding in the corners, the kind that doesn't hurt. My phone buzzes on the counter, another unknown number. You used to be the good one. I lock the screen without opening it. The message thuds into silence and stays there. Amir leans against the doorway, eyes on me, not asking me to be stronger than I am. Tea? He says. Please, I answer. The kettle starts to rattle. Layla drags a blanket to the couch and curls under it, thumb in her mouth, eyes already heavy. I tuck the edge around her shoulder and sit beside her, close enough to feel her breath on my wrist. Marisol said we have good energy, I tell Amir when he brings the mugs. She's right, he says. You built it. We built it, I say back, because we did. He smiles without teeth. He knows what I'm about to say before I say it. He waits anyway. For the first time, I tell him, voice low but steady, I built a family that chose us back. He squeezes my knee. The kettle clicks off. Rain taps the window. Across the street, a porch light snaps on and then off again. I don't look. I don't check the group chat. I don't refresh any page. I breathe in steam and cinnamon and the last notes of dinner. Layla mumbles something that sounds like tortilla and sighs into her blanket. I rub small circles on her back until her shoulders loosen and fall. Amir sinks into the chair across from me and kicks off his shoes. One, then the other. An ordinary sound that lands like a promise. No speeches, no posts, no explanations. Just a table, a couch, a sleeping child, and the kind of night that finally belongs to us.
I was pouring coffee when the text came in. Mom's in ICU. No punctuation, no explanation. Just those words sitting on my screen while the kettle clicked. Amir stepped into the kitchen and saw my face. What is it? Mom, I said. She's in the hospital. He didn't crowd me. Do you want to go? I nodded once. He set his mug down and reached for the car keys. We drove through a light rain. The hospital smelled like bleach and lemon. Fluorescent lights hummed. I checked in at the desk, clipped on a sticker with my name, and followed the signs to ICU. My shoes squeaked on the polished floor, each step too loud. Chloe sat outside the glass doors with mascara smudged under her eyes and a crushed tissue in her fist. She looked up when she heard me. She keeps asking for you, she said. Is she okay? Stable, she said, swallowing, but weak. I hung my coat over the back of the chair and pressed my palms to my jeans to dry them. I'll go in. Chloe's mouth trembled. You don't have to. I know. I pushed the door. The room was white and small. Machines blinked. Tubing looped from a metal pole. She looked smaller than I remembered, her hair flatter, her breathing a little ragged. Her eyes opened at the sound. You came, she whispered. I did. Her gaze slid to the doorway. I wanted to see them too, she said. My grandkids. They'll come in, I said. Later. Her hand twitched against the blanket. You look tired, she tried. I'm fine. We listened to the monitor beat out its quiet rhythm. I pulled the visitor chair closer and sat. I said terrible things, she murmured, voice shaky. To you, to him, to the kids. Yes, I said. You did. I was scared, she said, eyes on the ceiling. Of being judged. Of losing you. You judged us first. Her mouth pressed flat. The monitor beeped steadily. She blinked up toward the light. People talk, Anna, she said, almost to herself. They always talk. They learned it somewhere, I said. Her eyes found mine, a long moment, then the smallest nod. I thought I was protecting you. Her voice cracked on the last word. You were protecting how you wanted to look, I said, not me. She closed her eyes. A tear slipped to her temple. The room held it. Our words, the beep, the rain tapping the window. A nurse came in, checked her blood pressure, pressed buttons, smiled at me with practiced softness, and left. The door clicked shut. We were alone again. Does Amir hate me? She asked. No, I said. He doesn't carry that. A faint, honest smile. He's a good man. He always was. Her throat moved. I know that now. We let it be quiet. The quiet wasn't heavy like before. It was simply there. I don't know how to fix it, she said at last.
I stood and placed my hand on the cool railing. I didn't come here to fix it. She flinched, then nodded like she'd been expecting that. I forgave you before I walked in, I said. Her eyes opened wide. Why? Because I needed to breathe again. She looked at me for a long time like she was measuring those words, testing if they would hold. Her lip trembled. She reached up and missed, fingers brushing air. I moved closer and took her hand. The bones felt light. She squeezed once, careful, like she was afraid to break me. The door eased open. Amir stood there with Layla half hidden behind his leg. He lifted his chin toward me, asking without speaking. I nodded. Layla slipped into the room, braids a little frizzy from the rain, both hands holding the stuffed rabbit she took everywhere. She stopped at the end of the bed, wide-eyed. "Grandma," she said, just above a whisper. My mother turned her head. Something in her face fell and softened at the same time. She reached out. Layla hesitated, then came around the side and put her small hand into my mother's. The old and the young looked at each other like they were learning a new language by sight alone. "You're so beautiful," my mother said, voice breaking. "She's strong," I said. Layla's eyes flicked to me. I gave her a little nod. She climbed onto the chair and placed the rabbit near the pillow. "For when you wake up," she said. My mother laughed and cried in the same breath. It made her cough. I poured water from the little plastic pitcher and held the cup to her lips while she sipped. "I said I didn't want people to ask questions," she whispered when she caught her breath. "I told myself I was saving you trouble, but I was saving myself from embarrassment. I see that now." "You've said it," I replied. "That's the part you control." She nodded and looked toward the door where Amir waited, not stepping in, not stepping away. "Tell him I'm sorry," she said. "You can tell him," I said. She hesitated, then lifted her chin. "Amir?" He entered and stopped at the foot of the bed. He kept his hands at his sides. He didn't look angry, just steady. "I'm sorry," my mother said. "I heard you," he said. "I was wrong." He nodded once. "Thank you." No speech, no lecture, just that. She closed her eyes and breathed like she'd set something down. Chloe slipped inside, caught sight of Layla's rabbit by the pillow, and pressed her fingers to her mouth. "Hey," she whispered to me. "Hey." "I didn't know how to call you," she said, "so I just sent the text." "It was enough," I said. She nodded. "Do you want me to get some water? Or coffee?" "I'm okay." Chloe moved to the other side of the bed and stroked Mom's arm. "We're here," she said softly. It didn't erase anything. It didn't pretend to. It just sat there with us. The nurse returned, adjusted a line, and told us visiting hours were flexible if we kept it quiet. We all mumbled thanks. When the door clicked shut again, the rain had grown steadier, a soft drum against the glass. "I never wanted to hate you," I said to my mother. Her eyes filled. "But I made it hard to love me." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Layla swung her legs, heels thudding lightly against the chair. "Grandma, do you like stories?" she asked. "Very much," my mother rasped. Layla straightened and launched into one about a rabbit who was afraid of thunder, until the fox showed him how to count the seconds between lightning and sound. Her hands moved, making shapes. At the end, she clapped for herself. It broke the tension in a way grown-up words couldn't. "That was perfect," my mother said, wiping at her cheeks with the back of her wrist. Amir checked the clock and touched my shoulder. "We should let her rest soon." I nodded. I leaned in close to my mother. "We'll come again," I said. "Thank you," she whispered, "for this." "For bringing her, I didn't bring her to fix anything," I said. "I brought her so we all remember what matters." She closed her eyes, tears sliding out anyway. "I'm sorry," she said again, like a prayer this time, not a performance. "I know," I said. Chloe sniffed and gave me a small, helpless smile. "Drive safe," she said. "We will." Layla hopped down and picked up the rabbit, then placed it back by the pillow, deciding on the spot. "He can stay," she told my mother. "He's brave." My mother laughed her small laugh. just like you." We said goodbye. I tucked the blanket under her arm. Amir opened the door and held it for us. In the hall, the air felt different, still cold but less sharp. Chloe walked us to the elevator, pressing the button with her thumb and staring at the numbers as if she could hold the car with her eyes. "I don't know how to be around you," she blurted. "I keep messing it up." "Start by not repeating her story," I said, gentle. "Make your own." She nodded hard, tears shining again. The elevator arrived. She squeezed my hand and let go. We rode down without speaking. Outside, the rain had thickened into a steady sheet. Amir pulled his hood up and hustled Layla to the car, while I stood under the awning for one beat longer, watching the drops burst on the concrete and slide toward the drains. Then I went after them. We drove with the wipers on low. Layla slept before we reached the freeway, head tipped into her booster seat, Rabbit missing from her lap because it was under a hospital pillow upstairs. In the front, Amir turned the radio down until it was only a suggestion of music. "You okay?" he asked. I stared ahead at the ripple of taillights. "I'm not angry," I said. "Not right now." "That's new," he said, and there was no judgment in it. "It is." He reached across the console and found my hand. I let him take it. The bones of our fingers fit the way they always had. At a red light, he looked at me. "You did what you needed to do." "I did," I said. We reached home. The rain followed us to the door, tapping the porch, soaking the mat. Amir carried Layla inside and laid her on the couch. I took off her shoes and covered her with the blue blanket she loved. She sighed and turned, cheek on her hands.
In the kitchen, I put the kettle on again. The house settled around us, the hum of the fridge, the tick of the heating vents. Amir leaned against the counter, waiting. I leaned beside him and felt my shoulders drop in a way they hadn't in years. "Forgiveness didn't fix anything in that room," I said, barely above a whisper. "It just took the weight off my chest." He nodded. "That's enough for tonight." I poured the hot water over a tea bag and watched the color bloom. The rain kept talking on the windows. There were no speeches left, no plans, no rehearsals for the next time. Just the sound of our daughter's breathing from the next room, the steam rising from the cup in my hands, and the sense, quiet and solid, that the chain between me and the past had finally loosened. I set the cup down, pressed my palms to the counter, and let the silence hold. The smell of warm bread drifted through our kitchen, while Amir tucked a few crooked stems into a glass jar. Layla wiped each fork like it was a tiny mirror and lined them beside the plates. When the knock came, I dried my hands on a towel and looked at Amir. "Ready?" he asked. "I've been ready for a while," I said. I opened the door. Mom stood thinner than I remembered, hair softer and grayer. Chloe and Mike held a casserole and a paper bag. "It's beautiful here," Mom said, eyes taking in the light, the wood, the space. "It's peaceful," I said, and stepped aside. We didn't hug, we didn't perform. We moved to the table. One table, no kids' corner, no side chairs. "Grandma first," Layla said, lifting a glass with both hands. The water sloshed. Mom steadied it with a careful smile. "Thank you, sweetheart." Chloe glanced at the framed drawings on the wall, the smudged handprints near the hallway. "You've really built a home here." "Brick by brick," I said, setting the bread basket down. Mike cleared his throat. "Smells amazing." "Family recipe," Amir said. "Adapted." A small laugh moved around the table. Not big, real enough. We passed dishes. We let plates talk for us. Butter, roasted chicken, a bowl of tomatoes and mint. Layla kept reaching for the olives and then remembering she didn't like them, and everyone watched her try again like it was a sport. Mom set her fork down. The sound was gentle, final. "Anna," she said, "I was cruel. You didn't deserve that." I looked at her, not away. "You hurt me," I said, "and him, and her." "I know," she said. "I was afraid. You made choices I didn't understand. Then you punished me for them." Silence folded over us. Layla slid her small hand over mine, as if to keep my words from shaking.
"I don't expect you to forget," Mom said. "Good," I said. "I haven't." I drew a breath that didn't scrape. "But I don't want to keep remembering through hate." Mom nodded, tears bright but held. "Then maybe you're stronger than me."
"No," I said, "just tired of the noise." Chloe rubbed at the rim of her glass. "I said awful things too." "I know," I said. "We all did." No one moved for a few beats. Then Mom lifted the serving spoon, took a portion, and set it on Layla's plate. "This one's for my granddaughter." "Thank you, Grandma," Layla said, voice small and happy. Cutlery began to rise and fall. The room filled with quiet, steady sounds. I tasted the chicken. Salt, lemon, patience. Amir caught my eye across the table and gave me the same look he'd given me the first night we ate on a blanket because we had no chairs. Proud calm. "This feels right," he said. "Finally," I answered. Chloe leaned forward. "I told people things about you I'm not proud of," she said to me, then to Amir. "About both of you. I wanted to be on Mom's side so badly I forgot I had one of my own." Mom winced. "Chloe—" "No, Mom," Chloe said, eye shining. "I did that." I buttered bread and passed it to Mike, who had been sitting too carefully, breathing like he didn't want to disturb the air. He smiled, a little relieved to have a job. Mom's fingers touched the edge of the table. "Thank you for letting me in," she said. "It wasn't about letting you in," I said. "We left the door open." "You walked through," her mouth trembled. "I'm trying." "I can tell." Layla stole another olive, made a face again, and spit it into her napkin with theatrical disgust. Laughter broke, plain and easy. She beamed at the sound like she'd lit it. We told small stories. Mike's car trouble, Chloe's new manager who forgets her name, the way Layla insists the moon is following our car at night. Amir asked Mom about a plant he'd seen in her yard years ago. She brightened and described soil, sun, shade, the language of keeping something alive. The room settled into a rhythm I recognized from before words had started to bruise. After seconds, and then thirds, we slowed. Butter wrappers lay flat, a little greasy. Napkins softened. I poured more water. Mom sat back, eyes moving from Amir to Layla to me like she was memorizing a map. "I didn't know—" "Good?" I asked. "It's perfect," she said. We ate without rush. I could hear our breathing, and for once it felt like music instead of evidence. The house held us. The table held us. No one was performing for a photograph. No one was arranging anyone for symmetry. "Mom," Layla said, licking icing from her thumb, "are we family again?" I looked around the table. Amir's steady smile, Chloe's red, honest eyes, Mike's quiet relief, my mother's hands, smaller than I remembered, open on either side of her plate. I felt the floor under my feet and the chair under my back, and the kind of quiet that doesn't hide anything. "Now," I said, "we finally are." We didn't clap or pray or announce anything. We sat. We passed the last piece of bread to the person who wanted it. We took turns telling Layla jokes so terrible she fell over laughing. Mom asked Amir for the spice mix, and he wrote it down for her on the back of a grocery list. Chloe washed 2 more cups because she said she needed to keep moving or she'd cry again, and then she cried anyway and laughed through it. When it was time to go, coats appeared, and the air by the door cooled. Mom hugged Layla first, then Amir, then me. It wasn't a long hug. It was real. "Thank you," she said in my ear. "You're welcome," I said. The door closed, soft. The house exhaled. Amir leaned his shoulder into mine. Layla leaned into both of us. I looked at the table, crumbs like confetti we didn't plan, plates a little out of place, and said the only thing that fit in the room we had made. "You can lose blood and still build family." Layla tipped her head, listening like it was a new song. I kissed her hair, met Amir's eyes, and let the night settle where it belonged. I stopped translating my pain, I said, and started teaching love a new language. "Do you think Anna did the right thing cutting them off?
Or should she have given her mom another chance earlier? Can love really survive family prejudice? I want to hear your take. Comment what you would have done in her place. Would you forgive someone who made your child feel less? Let's talk about where forgiveness should end.